Hello, my patriotic comic fans. It's Jerry Rasco, and today we are going to be talking about Captain America. So, if you're familiar with the channel and you've been here for a while, you know that we have a review series for lots of Marvel characters, and now we're expanding that to another review series here, bringing our total up to 5 as of the recording of this video with Captain America. That said, I do want to point out that we're not going to be looking at Captain America #1, which is, of course, the iconic World War II Captain America punching Hitler issue. We are going to be looking at Captain America in the Marvel Universe as of 1964, when he was brought back. And in fact, we're not going to be looking at Captain America because he didn't have a solo series at that time. He began as a split series. So the first, it's one comic called Tales of Suspense, and it features 2 distinct stories. One is Iron Man, and then the second one is Captain America. If you're familiar with our Hulk series, this is the same thing that happened to the Incredible Hulk once his original series was canceled. He was moved to Tales to Astonish and shared the series with first Giant Man and then Submariner. So this is what's happening here. We're getting our first solo Captain America stories are in Tales of Suspense, which is shared with Iron Man. We'll see that when we get to the cover. I want to take a second to thank everybody who has been subscribing to the channel and supporting us here. We are making great strides in reaching our 1,000 subscriber goal, and that, of course, is all thanks to you. So not only the folks who have clicked that subscribe button, but also anybody who shared it out. Let the world know so that they can be part of this as well. So thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, let me show what you could win. There's a chance when we reach the 1,000 subscriber mark. I will be choosing 6 random subscribers, and they will each win one piece of original one-of-a-kind artwork that celebrates all of the series that we have here on the channel. So that artwork is here. We have the Amazing Spider-Man, we have the X-Men, we have the Hulk, we have the Avengers, of course we have Captain America, and then the last series yet to debut, as of the recording of this video, is the Fantastic Four. So, as I mentioned, we'll pick 6 random subscribers, and each person will win one piece of original artwork, completely free. Even the shipping will be free. So, click that subscribe button if you haven't so far. Help us out. Let's get to some 1,000 subscribers as fast as possible. That all out of the way, let's cut over to the comic, and let's check this one out. So here is the cover to Tales of Suspense number 59, and this is where we have the introduction of Captain America to this series. So you can see this is the beginning of Captain America in what we would call the Silver Age of Marvel Comics. So again, split series. The cover here is by Jack Kirby, of course, who was drawing just about everything at that time. If you're familiar with our series, Jack Kirby was drawing some of the Hulk. Jack Kirby was drawing the Avengers. Jack Kirby was drawing the X-Men. Jack Kirby is drawing Captain America and Tales of Suspense, plus probably, I think, Journey into Mystery with Thor. I mean, like, the guy was unbelievable output, and this is some of what we see here. But for me, I think, when I think of Jack Kirby, yes, there's all those other characters, and he certainly was critical in the creation of the visualizations of those characters. But to me, it really, I think Captain America is by far his best and probably most beloved, maybe even by Jack, character. So there's something special when we get Jack Kirby on Captain America, and that's what we're going to see here. So that's the deal. In terms of the actual cover itself, it's pretty good. Obviously, it's an iconic pose of Captain America's shield forward, bursting through the background as Iron Man is sort of gesturing to introduce him. This is a very classic motif we see throughout comics of the characters bursting through essentially the cover material, the page, coming at us, you know, when you're introducing something new. So we've seen this motif a lot, and it's used to great success here with Iron Man and Captain America. So, as I always say, this is a scanned PDF copy of the comic, and so that's why we have everything is as original from 1964. Original ads, yellowing paper, the coloring is there. Everything is as close to we could have to actually having our hands on the actual comic itself, which is why I like this format a great deal. As we start, we have the Iron Man story. We're going to skip through that because that's not what we're here for. This isn't the Iron Man review series. This is Captain America. So we're going to get to the Captain America series here. So great splash page to start with. Now, for the most part, I'm not a big fan of what I call the second cover, right? This image is iconic. It's possibly even been reused as covers, maybe reprinted. I know I've seen this in many places. It looks great. It's just one of those things where when you have a limited number of pages, and here you only have half a book's worth of pages, you have to get your story condensed much more, and every page counts. So to use a splash page for a pinup, essentially, I don't typically like it, but here's where this comes into play. This makes sense because this is the first issue. So if we had ended on a cliffhanger, if we had ended on a mid-story point, and the next issue is going to jump into the story, I want this first page to be right into the story. But here, there is no story to jump into. Unless you want to write kind of backwards, if you want to introduce us mid-story and then kind of give us a retrospect into how it began and then cut back, you can do those things. That's certainly a writing style that works. But here, we're starting from the beginning. Our story is going to be very linear, so we don't have a story to start off with. So this image is great. And again, this is right up there, classic Kirby splash page. We'll talk about the creative team here. So Stan Lee is still writing. Jack Kirby is the penciler. And here we have Chic Stone as the inker. If you just have seen recently, the last Avengers issue that we did also featured Jack Kirby and Chic Stone. Our X-Men series also featured Jack Kirby and Chic Stone. So obviously a pairing that the two of them liked. Must be they enjoyed working together. And obviously Stan Lee, as both the author and editor, liked the pairing of the two as well. I think it's good. I think Chic Stone often tempers a little bit of Jack's more angular line work. However, I also find sometimes that Chic Stone's inking is, in my opinion, a little thin. What I mean by that is there's very little heavy shadow. So the lighting is kind of nebulous unless it's very specific. The figures often and objects don't often cast a lot of shadows, which means they sometimes are floating in space. And then his line work, especially in the backgrounds, will get very, very thin and very open. We see that there on the second page. We'll get into that as the story goes as well. So there are other inkers that I really like with Jack Kirby. Chic Stone's okay. Not the worst, but not my favorite either. One thing I do want to point out in the splash page that is great, which a lot of people overlook, when your character is smashing through something, a window, a wall, a door, a rock, whatever it is, as they are smashing through that, pieces of that, again, in this case, it's a window, it's glass, are going to be flying in front of them because they're breaking through it. So it's important that you have whatever they're breaking through overlapping them in some areas. Otherwise, it defeats the illusion of three-dimensionality in that they're breaking through a thing. Because, again, if somebody breaks through a window, that glass is going to follow the force that broke it and would come flying towards the viewer. And that's what's happening here. So that's a really nice touch. Jack did a great job there. Immediately we cut, and story-wise we see Avengers Mansion, and Cap is going to be on what they call monitor duty. So basically, if there's any alerts, there's any alarms, anything happens, there's always an Avenger sort of on call, and they rotate through, and then they can alert the rest of the team. That's kind of the concept that goes, for years and years with the Avengers, and that's what we're seeing here. You see this establishing shot of the mansion. That's fine. But again, this is a perfect example of what I call Chic Stone's light inks, or also dead inks. So I would guess my speculation here is that when it comes to the background stuff, I would love if somebody knows, if you're a historian, if anybody out there, I know my friend Nick, who comments on a bunch of the videos, is a comic historian. Maybe he knows this answer. I get the feeling that Chic Stone was inking a lot of these backgrounds where you have straight line work, the clock, these doorway stuff. I'm wondering if he was inking with technical pens. So technical pens are different than, or I guess back in the day, you would have called it a rapidograph. So basically, it's a pen that was designed really for architectural work where you wouldn't want a fluctuation in the line weight where the line would get thicker or thinner like a brush. You would want your line weight to be extremely consistent and straight. And these pens had very, very fine points. You would load the ink into it, and you would work that way. That's my guess, is that maybe that's the case and why this is so thin, but why he doesn't go back. Like, you can see underneath, he's added a little bit of shadow underneath this top level there and a little bit here, but it doesn't carry through. It's not on the undersills of the windows. It's not on any of the front architecture that would be overlapping and casting a shadow. It's not on any of the back buildings. I mean, it's just incredibly thin, combined with the coloring from 1964, where nobody's going to go in and do gradients and change the color based on lighting. It's all this one big block of gray, and without the shading, it really loses a lot. So a lot of that detail just flattens out, and it just becomes a square of gray. We see Jarvis, the Avengers butler, who served the Stark family and now works specifically for Tony as overseeing the Avengers. So that's really nice there. And then kind of set up with an establishing shot of the room. This is going to be important later with the action that comes into it that we see. Sorry about that. Little phone call. That we see what's going on there with the room. Time goes by. Cap is reading. Again, this is where I say yes. Chic Stone will do a lot of shadows when the dramatic lighting needs to be there. But for the most part, not really. And here Cap is sitting in a chair with a lone light. We can see the sort of the spotlight, but you notice he is casting no shadow on the floor. So if the light is over here to the side, the chair and everything should be casting a shadow in the opposite direction, and it's not. And that's just a small thing, but it's really easy. If you're going to go through and draw all these lines to show what happens outside of the spotlight of light, then draw the shadow coming out the other side. It's just some brush work and a little bit of black ink. It's not going to take very long. We cut from Cap to the main antagonists of this story, which are just some hoods. We don't know. They're crooks, and we don't know much about them. Other than the leader has a plan, and he's trying to explain to his crew how they can take out the Avengers, even though superpowered people can't. Okay. I do talk about this a lot with all the comic series we do. We talk about transitions. How do you move from scene to scene? Again, the problem here is we have extremely limited real estate. You only have half the pages you normally would to tell essentially a full short story. So you've got to be very conservative with your pages, meaning you can't just go, let me add another panel of Captain America. I'll do a close-up here of Cap as he's looking through this scrapbook, and then we'll cut to the next page, and a page turn is a good scene change. We don't necessarily have all that room, so that's part of it. But again, there are other ways to do scene changes. Even if you can't do a page turn, you can do them visually, where you can have a similar repeating image from scene to scene, or the theme, right? So depending on what Cap is thinking about and talking about, that could be reflected back over here. None of those things are, so it's just a very dramatic, jolting scene change all of a sudden. So you've got these crooks, and they are in your very classic Silver Age crook outfits, which involve suits and hats and ties. They dress very dapper for being crooks. And he explains, the guy here, the leader, is Bull, and he explains that chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and he believes Captain America is the weak link because he has no superpowers. And so they're going to wait till Captain America's alone, and then they'll take him out, and they'll capture Avengers Mansion for themselves. They have kidnapped Jarvis the butler, and he tells them, it's Captain America is on monitor duty tonight. You could have just called and found out. But these guys are like, grab your weapons, and then I love this. Just let him go. We're not worried about him warning anybody. We're not worried about him calling the cops. Just, it's fine. Just let him go. Very honorable crooks who are bringing guns to, I mean, they're not shooting at Captain America for funsies. They're shooting at Captain America to kill him, right? So, but they let Jarvis go. And then Cap is reminiscing, of course, about his time in World War II, since this, for him, is very recent, right? Yes, about 20 years have passed since he was trapped in the ice in the end of World War II, but for him, it feels like days. So that's still kind of doing the man out of time plot line or characterization. Of course, we have a coloring error here. We've missed a leg. We've missed the red on the stripes of his torso. Again, these things sort of happen, and you have to recall back in 1964, if you had run through all these, you wouldn't have known that there was a coloring error until a bunch of them had been printed, which meant costs. And as a publisher, the printer was like, sorry, right? I mean, it is what it is. Publishers didn't print their own. They took their art, they took their magazines, whatever it was, took it to a printer. The printer printed and went, here you go. So you've paid for them. You can either pulp them, literally like pulp the paper, destroy them all, and reprint them at your own cost, or you print it out and you just put it out and you go, eh. Because again, comics were not looked at, certainly in 1964, the way they are in 2026, which is, you know, they're collector's items, and these are going to be kept in pristine quality forever. These were meant to be disposable entertainment for younger audiences. That's the honest truth. So as he's reminiscing, the goons attack, and Cap jumps into action. This is a very awkward, and one of the few really awkward poses that Jack Kirby draws throughout the issue. I get it. He's sort of turning and spinning away from this gunfire all of a sudden. There are cooler ways that he could have done it than this awkward pose, but so be it. And then he uses this cart to roll through, which seems odd, and get his shield. One, if you want to do something like that, you need to establish the cart. You need to establish, either have it here in the background on the left-hand page, or you need to have it in front of him here in the first panel so that when he's on it, it doesn't come out of nowhere. Then he fights, and they've got a very interesting situation. So all the thugs all of a sudden went from suits and ties and stuff, and now they're wearing these funny purple suits with helmets. Why? I mean, you're not worried about people recognizing you. So why the change? Other than it's just a lot easier to draw, you know, in generic purple jumpsuits. Maybe that, you know, from a logistics standpoint, from a plot standpoint, I don't understand it. And then they've got this one guy in an suit of armor. This looks like a Mark I Iron Man suit. Did they steal a Mark I Iron Man suit? Like, if I was Iron Man, I would be worried that somebody could build something this sophisticated, which is very similar to his designs. Like, that's questionable. Now, I do want to point this out. This is what and I'm going to zoom in here. Maybe, you know, no, I was going to say, maybe my eyes trick me when they're small images. Sometimes that does happen. Not here. What we've got is a tangent. So a tangent is the outside outline of your figures or objects are called contour lines. That's the bold outline that creates the shape of your character. All the stuff inside is called rendering. That's where we see this shadow on Captain America's leg or the texture of his chainmail shirt. That is rendering. So the contour line of multiple objects here line up almost perfectly so that it's impossible to tell just by looking at them which one is in front, which one is behind. And that is between the foot, the hand, and this other foot right here. So right in this little pocket right here, the way the heel is shaped and then the way the fingers are wrapped around it make the curve of the front of this foot. So really, it almost looks like this guy is standing on Captain America's heel and that he's really, really small because this foot is so much smaller than Cap's or the hand grabbing it. So that is a bad thing. You want to avoid your tangents as much as possible because it does the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to accomplish three-dimensionality, which is saying that this foot is behind the fingers that are grasped around it, and both of these are in front of the foot, and they're overlapping it. But if you clip things right so that it completes that shape and our eyes sort of fill in the shape of that foot, then it flattens it out and defeats the three-dimensional illusion that you're trying to accomplish. So again, Cap throws a shield. One of the reasons that I held out before we launched this review series was because you notice here Captain America has his magnetic glove, which is attracting the electronics in the shield to pull towards him. This is something that was just added in Avengers number 6 that we just reviewed prior to the recording of this video. So I wanted to make sure so that there wasn't that continuity question of like, wait a minute, why does Captain America have a magnetic shield device when we haven't seen it in the Avengers? So yeah, it was just introduced in the previous issue of Avengers, so that makes a lot of sense. Cap gets grazed by a bullet. This seems to happen a lot. It happened in the Avengers comic we just reviewed, so check that out. For whatever reason, seems to happen to poor Captain America quite a bit. So I'm guessing this guy either has a really hard head or he's got CTE for sure. And then he gets walloped by the giant suit of armor, and he's out for the count. And there we go. There's our gang of purple suited guys. And again, I just was like, why are they in these weird purple outfits? If you wanted to do that, just show them here. Like, show these thugs grabbing Jarvis in the purple outfits. Maybe the leader guy isn't in his yet, but at least show them so that it's more clear visually that, oh yeah, these are the same guys. Because you'll see later, I mentioned, it's with the suit, it's really hard to identify individuals, including like who's the leader. So here he's very identifiable. He's got a bright yellow shirt, his hair, all this stuff helps to identify him as to who he is. Here, not so much. I will say this, that we'll see more of the faces of these guys. They are very classic Kirby thugs. They have sort of squat, wide frog-like faces. That's the description that I used in my notes. And I think we'll definitely see that. And again, very Kirby-esque design of bad guys. I don't understand the safe here and what I'm looking at. Is this a secret wall? Is this guy pushing the wall open and there's this thing behind it? Yeah, I don't understand what exactly I'm looking at. This is one where I appreciate the large image up here of the thugs hauling off the unconscious Captain America. I think I would have been happy to shrink up that panel some to see more about the safe, because I feel like it's kind of important. Maybe it isn't long term, but I just don't really understand what I'm looking at here. Cap frees himself conveniently, but again, a guy who was trained and survived World War II in a bright red, white, and blue costume with a shield probably has some training on how to escape captivity. And he uses his boots to snap the ropes on his arms and begins to fight in a way that Captain America can do, where he combines his agility with acrobatics and other forms of self-defense. This is, again, where I talk about the thin Chic Stone line work. Very similar here as well. I do want to point this out. I just had a final note at the end of my notes. The yellow voidless backgrounds bother me, and this is a good example of one here. You have something. Is this a door, a cabinet, a wall? I don't know. There's no ceiling. There's no walls. There's just this sort of blank yellow void. Same thing happens down here. Over here it's white, but it's still, again, a void. There's no shadows. There's no structure. We don't know where we are in the wall. None of it exactly makes sense. So yeah, all these thin lines, like here, okay, we see the big safe, but look at how, like, hair thin some of these lines are on the safe, the wall, all that stuff. It's just, yeah. Again, it makes me wonder why are these lines so thin and dead? Maybe they were done with a rapidograph. That would kind of make sense there. And Cap is just in the flow, right? This is what he does as he moves, as he goes from move to move, and that's one of the things that's done very well. There's great choreography through this book. Cap jumping up, grabbing the guys and hitting their heads together as he goes by, and then flipping over so that the settling torch burns the ropes and freezes legs, then moving immediately into disabling the torch, being grabbed by the suit. Like, all of it flows very nicely. So that part is really good. Here's an example, like I mentioned, this what I call frog faces. These guys that have these sort of weird eyes that are sometimes different sizes, kind of mushy in terms of the structure, and then they'll have like a big wide mouth with a lot of lines on the face. So that's what I called the frog face. Let's see here. Oh yeah, and then I thought it's funny. So Cap leaps into action, and every time he does, one of the bad guys is like, "Hey boss, look out! Hey boss, look! Boss, what do we do? Boss!" It's like, I get it. You got a bunch of mindless thugs for their muscle. You didn't get them to think, but you know what to do. Just fight. You don't have to tell the boss everything. I just thought it was kind of funny. It was like a little kid going, "Ma, ma, ma, look, mom, mama, mama, mama." That's what it reminded me of. Cap is grabbed by the big guy in the suit of armor, but hey, again, this is a guy who essentially fights above his weight class all the time, right? Again, you have to remember, if you're not familiar with comic book Captain America and all you know is movie Captain America, comic book Captain America is not super strong the way the movies are. He is as strong as a human being can be without having superpowers. So yes, he's a lot stronger than your average man. But if you went and said, "Hey, let's have him compete against the world's strongest power lifters, or the world's in terms of his strength, his leaping ability, let's have him compete against the world's greatest long jumpers," he could compete with them. He would be in their class, but not above their class, right? So there are human beings that can do the things that Captain America can do. Maybe not all of them could do everything that Captain America could do, right? So that's the difference. So as we see him flipping people, like this guy in the big suit of armor, it's not because he's super strong. It's because he understands leverage and angles. And again, that's what we see here. So you have the bad guys, they go, "Hey, we'll pile on him. There's more of us." He uses his shield to hold him. Now, movie Captain America would throw them off into the ceiling, right? He would probably just push them and they would go boom and go flying off. Here, he has to use their momentum, their weight against them by rolling over and throwing them off of him while also avoiding the big punch of the armored guy. So that's really great stuff there. And again, just maximizing what Captain America can do without making him appear actually superhuman. So that's really good stuff. I do like the low angle here. It's good for action, but there's a problem. So if the camera is really low and your floor, so you've got your ceiling, we see the ceiling. These guys are either floating in the air. Now they could be leaping, but they're, assume a couple of them are on the ground. They couldn't be on the ground up here, or else it'd be really close to the ceiling. And then if this was the ground is somewhere in this realm, this guy is halfway through the floor. So really, if you want to have somebody in the foreground with this kind of low angle, it should be just a leg. We wouldn't see the face and head and gun. You would just see a leg in the foreground. So that's a little problematic there. I understand the drama of the shot and it works with Cap and the figures. It just doesn't work with sort of the way the background is shaped up. This is one where maybe the voidless yellow background might have been a little better. Or what you do is you just make the ceiling, kind of, instead of all the way down to almost the bottom of the page, you have it up here and you show more of the walls and stuff behind them. Cap pulling a matador as the guy in the armor charges and lets him run into the fireplace, right, and kind of knock himself out. That's fine, but what you need to do, I understand the idea is he puts the shield here so that the guy can't see how close he is to the fireplace, so he crashes right into it, but we need to see it as a reader. You need to understand where they are in space. So you could still draw that and give a hint of the fireplace behind him. You could do it. You could also do this from the opposite angle. We could be behind Captain America real close, see the edge of that shield and the guy charging at him, and then you flip angles and boom, you see that there's the fireplace behind him. Those are a couple ways you could do it that might work a little better than what we've got here. And then they're going to use sleeping gas, and I love this. Put it in your bazooka. So they have essentially, they use the term bazooka. Think of it as a rocket launcher. They're going to launch a gas canister at Captain America. They're a foot away. Just pull the pin, or toss it and shoot it with a regular gun. You're using a bazooka. They call it bazooka, rocket launcher, something that would launch this thing distances, and they're about to use it point blank range. So first of all, the gas part of it is going to affect them too, because they're right on top of it. And here's what happens. So Cap blocks the end of it. They fire, and all the gas comes out the back. You're lucky that it's not an actual explosive, because I've seen actual rocket launcher explosion, and it's almost the person who it happened to survived, but they were fortunate. I mean, that it should by all rights explode, but of course you can't do that in a comic. We have the Comic Code Authority. You can't show somebody blowing themselves up with a rocket launcher. So the gas gets pushed back into the bad guy's face. Now we have a couple of guys who claim to be their expert martial artists, and Cap, of course, is far more skilled than they are, because he is a master of basically all the forms of martial arts, not just one type. So once he gets his hands on these guys, they are at his mercy. And now we have the leader. So this is the guy Bull that started the whole thing off. And this is my problem with the purple suits, is if you look at this guy here in this face, this is his very craggy, Kirby bad guy face, very classic. If you scroll that back to here, is it the same guy? It's close enough, but I would argue that you couldn't really recognize this guy with that face. This is kind of anybody. Take the helmet off. Show us the hair. The hair is pretty, identifiable. It's very different from everybody else. So he's the leader. Have him without a helmet on. It just, again, makes us realize it's the same person. Yes, he has the name, but it's about the visuals, of course. That's what we're talking about here. Cap lets him get a couple shots in, returns them in kind, gives him one big haymaker, and everybody has had the radish. These guys are done, and there's a great deal of wreckage involved that he's going to have to clean up. So you get a cute little ending, hey, boy, that was tiring. That was a long night. I'm tired. I guess when you're my age, you just start to get soft. Ha ha. So there we go. There's the end of our first solo Captain America story in modern Marvel Comics. Let's go over to the desk and we'll wrap this one up. So there we go. Tales of Suspense number 59, featuring the first ongoing solo series of Captain America since World War II. So pretty cool stuff there to see. It's nice to have him back and in a series. So that's very cool. In terms of, again, good and bad, there's some very iconic Jack Kirby stuff in there that works really well. There's the Chic Stone inks, which are kind of hit or miss for me. They're, he's half the time he's killing it, and then the other half of the time I'm really missing things like core shadows, cast shadows, things that would help set the space and the depth and the three-dimensionality of the figures, and I'm not seeing it. So that's a little troublesome for me. In terms of a rating, just being the first one, that's going to give it a little bit higher. I would give it a nice, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 7. I was torn between 6 and 7, so we'll split the difference. It's all action pretty much, which is great. But again, I just have some things. Some of the questions are almost more plot oriented than not, but it is the visuals. Like, the visuals are drawn before any of the dialogue is done. Jack Kirby would have worked off a very basic plot. It wouldn't have told him probably, hey, the bad guys start out in suits and ties and then they jump in, and when they attack Cap, they're in these crazy purple costumes. That's all Jack's imagination. So those are the things that I have in terms of visual storytelling points that concern me, and I think they're justifiable. But of course, I want to hear what you think. How do you feel about this? How does it feel to see Cap back in a solo series? Did you like where it was headed? Was it a fun way to introduce the series? Again, always want to hear your thoughts in the comments, so let me know what you think. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, join the channel, have that chance to win some of that original artwork, maybe the Captain America piece, maybe one of the other 6 or the other 5, and we will get to 1,000 subscribers before you know it. So don't forget to click that subscribe box, and of course, join us right here next week with more Captain America. Thanks.